Affordable cars, do those even exist anymore?
This is the 2025 Hyundai Elantra Hybrid, and it represents a disappearing class of affordable cars. The price for this top-of-the-line limited trim with destination is $30,810, which is nearly $20,000 less than the average new car sale price in 2025. And perhaps most shocking is that when you get in it, nothing about it really feels budget or low rent. Today, I'm going to fill you in on what makes this car such a value by not only showing you all the features and design, but what it's like to drive in the real world.
In 2024, the Elantra got a minor styling update, but this is a carryover from last year's model, and that is to say, angular. This is just the styling that Hyundai does, specifically with the Elantra and all of their vehicles. They really don't make them look anything like the previous generation model. Every new generation that comes out looks totally different. And some people may like that, some people may hate that. If I have to pick one styling element that I do like about the Elantra, it's the triangles on the side in this sheet metal. I kind of like what they've done there. It is at least unique and different. And you know what? This color isn't exactly doing this car any favors. This is called fluid metal, which is a really cool name, but it is essentially just silver. You get 7 different color options, and only 2 of which are not black, gray, or white. Wish they had a better color palette. Let me know what you think about the looks of the Elantra in the comments below. This Elantra Hybrid comes with one of several different engine options that you can get with this car depending on which model you get. You can get a 1.6 liter turbo, you can get a 2 liter naturally aspirated, or you could get this, a 1.6 liter with a electric motor instead of a turbo, being that it is of course the hybrid model. This makes 139 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure obviously being the big piece here that makes you feel like you're actually getting going, but we'll be curious to see what that feels like out on the road because it is notably down on power compared to some of its competition, a la the Honda Civic Hybrid. Now, of course, since we're talking about a hybrid, we need to talk about fuel economy. That's where this thing allegedly shines at 49 city, 52 highway, although I haven't been able to get quite those numbers. The interior of the Elantra is actually a really nice place to be. I would say that for the price point, $25,000 to $30,000, this feels nicer than that price point. In fact, compared to something like a Corolla, this is definitely above in terms of the build quality and the design, really on par with something like the Civic, which a couple weeks ago I named the best car for under $30,000. So what do you get in here? Of course, a really nice two-tone design, actually more than two-tone, really. I like this like almost denim looking fabric on the doors. Of course, different whites and blacks, minimal use of piano black, which is really nice, but silver running across the dash, all kinds of colors, different types of materials. It's just a really interesting and just nice design, nice place to be. And ultimately, the usability is still there as well. Really high marks for physical HVAC controls, which you guys always hear me go on about. Heated and cooled seats here in this limited model, and a 10.25-inch infotainment screen that they're very proud of. I will say what I like about it is it's more integrated in the dash than something like that Civic. And the menu structure is pretty simple. It's probably not my favorite. It's definitely up there. It's pretty good, but not my favorite in the class, just because I don't know, it's not as straightforward as something like this Civic, and even Toyotas these days are just like painfully simple. This is slightly more complicated, but still very good. And the only knock that I'll talk about with the infotainment is that in this limited model, you would expect it to have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but it does not get that. You do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it is wired. And that's just an odd choice to me, considering that the low tier model of the Elantra does get wireless CarPlay. So clearly something to do with this bigger screen, and this upper tier model just doesn't get that. Now, in terms of seating, that is another plus towards the Elantra. These front seats are very comfortable. I already mentioned heated and cooled, but you know what? They also have lumbar support. That's something that I was sorely missing in the Civic that I drove recently. And I think that's a major oversight for Honda to not have lumbar support, especially especially on their top of the line model. But you know, these are white seats, and I'm not sure how well they're going to hold up dirty wise over the course of the lifetime of the vehicle, but it does at least feel and look really nice right now. Now the back seats, this is a sedan of whatever category, and I do have a decent amount of leg room, but not so much headroom. I am 6'1", however, so slightly taller than the average adult. So if you do plan to have taller passengers, that might be an issue, but if you have shorter passengers or kids, no problems back there. Overall, this is a really, really, really nice place to be. I think it competes extremely well with the Civic, which I have high praise for in this category. I just wish it had that wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Let's take this thing for a drive to see what it's like out on the road. After spending a bunch of time in this Elantra Hybrid, I can now confidently say, or actually sum up what this car is in sort of an old saying. And before I finish that saying, know that I mean this in a good way. So this is sort of the jack of all trades, master of none. Have you heard that phrase before? The idea is being that, like, if you have a friend that is just like kind of good at everything, like all the sports that he does, he's like pretty good at, but he doesn't excel at any single one. He's like a 7.5 out of 10 out of like every category or every sport, but you know, is never the worst, never the best. That's just like exactly what this car is. And like I said, I mean this in a good way, because I think this is what you want in a daily driver, sensible commuter car, right? So let's get into that 7.5 out of 10 all across the board. Really, the engine and transmission. So this having that 1.6 liter paired with some electric assist, look, it is adequately powered. It has enough torque, and that's really the big thing here, because as you can tell, the horsepower number is down compared to its competition. But with all that electric torque that's instant, you're able to, like, you know, get yourself out of bad situations. You're able to hit holes in traffic that you want to, and that's really all you can ask for, right, in a car like this. You're not asking for a speed demon, but it is, of course, down on power and down on speed compared to the Civic Hybrid. And I'm going to be doing a lot of comparisons in this video to the Civic Hybrid, because that truly is the gold standard in this class. So that's what we're judging it up against. Now, the transmission, it's interesting because this is a slightly more traditional transmission, and traditional in the sense of like it has gears. It's not a CVT, right? CVTs are like continuously variable. So in terms of like it goes to the CVTs go to 4,000 RPM and just hold it because that's best for power, but it just sounds like a weed eater. Now, some modern CVTs like that are in the Civic actually will simulate gear shifts, which is a little better on the ear, but this just has it naturally because it does actually have gears. So in a way, that's nice. But there are certain times when you can kind of like trip it up where it gets in between gears and hesitates a bit. 95% of the time it works very well, but it's sort of like slow speed scenarios, and I've definitely noticed it when the car is cold. It is just slightly less responsive in terms of shifting, but overall good. And once again, a 7.5 out of 10. Let's talk about the suspension and handling of the vehicle. What they've done, what Hyundai has done, is exactly what you want in this class. You want it to be comfortable and compliant without, you know, like losing all sorts of body control. So you want it to soak up bumps, and that's exactly what this does. You want it to also not fall apart when you're on a twisty road like this, and you don't want to be punished. It's not that sort of sports car, right? You just want it to soak up bumps, and that's exactly what this does. But as we get into these sort of minutia here, to go from a 7.5 to an 8 or 9, the devil is in the details, right? So I will say, if you are super like in tune with chassis tuning, if you hit bumps mid-corner with this car, it really does upset the chassis, at least more so than that Civic Hybrid. So this is very good at a 7.5 out of 10 in terms of the suspension. It's just not quite there in terms of handling dynamics, specifically with that mid-corner. Same thing really with this brake. It has good steering. The steering feels accurate. It's nicely weighted. But I noticed that the brake pedals, we come to a stop here. It's one of those brake pedals that gives you so much braking force with like a little bit of pedal pressure. So like if you give it 20% of pedal pressure, meaning like 20% of your overall effort to brake, it's giving you like 75% of the braking force. And I guess everyone's gonna have different preferences on that, but for most people, I would think you want it to be a little more natural. You want to be a little more linear. So if I brake 50%, I want to expect it to give me 50% that brakes. And that's just not quite here. The pedal is also very numb. So yeah, you don't get positive feedback from it like you do in the Civic Hybrid. So these are minor things, once again, that are kind of setting you apart from setting this car apart from going from good to great. But none of this stuff is a deal breaker, because frankly, I think a lot of people might not notice this, but it's like, once again, if you are super in tune with chassis tuning, you will definitely notice it when you drive these cars back to back. Now, the rest of this stuff is excellent. Like in terms of the technology, it's actually better than the 7.5. The way it's implemented, everything works. I've had no hiccups. My phone connects. I will say though, like as we've already talked about, the move to not include wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is kind of mind-boggling to me. At least you get it wired here, but you have a wireless charger. Why can't I connect wirelessly? Like that is a bit of a bummer in a car like this, especially the limited trim, for somebody that is daily driving. You hop out of your car, you don't always want to plug in your phone, and that wireless aspect is quite nice. So the fact that that's gone is a bit of a bummer, but the rest of this works extremely well. It has lane centering that works very well, adaptive cruise control. It has like blind spot monitoring. It has like all the features, cooled seats, and everything works well. Now, what I will say is that where this is better to me than the Civic is the seats, at least these front seats. I've already mentioned that you have lumbar support in the seat. That is something that is absent in the Civic Hybrid, and for me, man, that makes such a big difference. And also these seats in general are just very good. The material is nice. They kind of feel like they're gonna hold up too. It's not like a super soft material that you feel like is gonna like totally fall apart, but they're supportive in all the right ways without being overbearing, right? Let's keep in mind that this is a daily driver. This is not your canyon carving sports car. I don't need to be in a bucket seat like held in super firmly. So the seats are definitely better than the Civic. As we sum this up, I've already made a million comparisons to the Civic Hybrid. I do still think that the Civic Hybrid is the gold standard in this class. And this to me is a very close second. But when you consider the value, perhaps this is a better value, because sort of trim for trim, this is cheaper than the Civic Hybrid. So you can get in the Elantra Hybrid at a lower price point than you can get in the Civic Hybrid, base for base. So that is something to keep in mind. You're getting something that is very close, not quite there on some levels, but very close, and maybe even better in some cases, like I talked about with the seats, depending on which model you get. But I want you to know that we're comparing this with the best car in the class. I would absolutely take this over, virtually everything else. Certainly a Corolla Hybrid, I would absolutely take this over, because this feels more modern. That Corolla Hybrid is it's been around forever. It's an old chassis. It's old tech. It doesn't feel as premium in here. And that's a big takeaway from this car, is that while the price indicates that it's cheap, it doesn't feel cheap in here. And that is a fantastic compliment. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like I said, I do think that this is an excellent value. Reliability, yet to be seen. Hyundai and Kia haven't had a great track record recently, so hopefully this car being naturally aspirated, it can keep up. So appreciate you guys sticking around this long. If you made it this far in the video, guys, hit that like and subscribe button if you did, and consider hitting the follow button on Instagram as well, Eat Sleep Drive TV, to see some behind the scenes stuff in between episodes. Catch you on the next one. Peace.